Consumerism is one of the three C's that we're talking about in the THB content. When you think of the word consumerism and what it used to mean versus what it means today, what comes to your mind?
I mean, it's simply not overpaying for healthcare, period. That's what it is to me. And we talk about things a lot more blunt than I think some would. I mean, consumerism used to be, I'm going to put a high deductible in place so that people would have the incentive, quote unquote, to maybe pay attention to things. And now we've gotten to the point where every single plan in America has a high deductible and still things cost too much and still people have no idea how to be a consumer.
I totally wanted to chime in on that. I was like, thinking about us as old time advisors, right? The reality of putting in a high deductible, a qualified high deductible HSA plan with a $5,000 deductible, and we give employees some nominal dollar amount and say, be a better consumer because you have more skin in the game, seems asinine. If someone were to now talk to you and say, what's consumerism mean today? How do you answer that?
I would say, I would tell a story, right? Because it's the only way that makes any sense to anybody. And literally this week, I'm at open enrollment meetings, and it was for a dealership, and it was the front desk lady, sweet old lady, came up to me. Her daughter had just had a sprained ankle, and she went and got X-rays for her daughter, and she was telling me about how she just got the medical bill in 3 months ago, and it was $600, and she can't believe how expensive things are. I'm like, are you on our health plan? She's like, no, I don't. I take my husband's plan. He's like, what should I look at switching to yours? I was like, well, I mean, you might want to. I mean, so can you tell me a little more about that? And yeah, it was literally an X-ray at the hospital for a sprained ankle. I was like, you're going to be really mad at me, ma'am, but if I told you what that X-ray should have cost you, it'll start to make you realize that you need to look at health insurance a little bit of a different way, because my daughter had just sprained her ankle 2 weeks ago. Except I'm smart enough to know how to navigate the healthcare system. Most people aren't. And I paid cash at an urgent clinic. And you know what I paid for my daughter's X-ray? $36. And so I told her that. I'm like, that'll piss you off. But like what we did for your healthcare plan here at the dealership, ma'am, is we actually gave you access to someone who knows the things that I know. And in the future, they could help you shop and save money that way. And it made sense to her. Right. And so that is what consumerism to me, man.
Yeah, I think it hits the other C on that, right? That conversation, that story hits those three C's. From a cost standpoint, you got to be in a self-funded plan to realize those savings. From a consumerism, well, you need to have the plan built. So in your example, you were the consumerism piece of it, but in how that dealership has their plan structured, they've got a concierge that somebody can call, and they would have been guided to the person that had the $36 in that example, MRI or X-ray. But the big piece of that I think is the huge part is the third C in communication. That communication and education of changing the way that consumers access healthcare from oh, I'm just going to go do whatever anybody tells me to, thinking about things before we do it is the must. That's why those three C's are so key to be put together.
So yeah, man, I got off a call this morning with the CEO of a small turf manufacturing company. And as we started to have our conversations, he was getting pissed, right? Like he was visibly upset. And he just looked at me and said, Pat, I don't understand. How is any of what you just talked about legal? And like, how is this possible? How is this being allowed? And I looked at him and I said, it's just been this way so long, people don't even know where to start, man. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm assuming that the legal part of it was he was getting another renewal. It was the same old thing. There was no justification
Oh,
and
of
all
course,
that.
58% renewal last year. Yeah, all the things. He was super frustrated.
So it's interesting. I hate that it has to happen this way because it's such a preventable conversation. But like at times, people like that. Like I think about that. Like we run businesses, right? So like I look at our expenses that every organization looks at their expenses. And if that turf manufacturer got a 58% increase from their, plastic, I'm assuming it's like artificial turf, right? Their plastic, whatever, their supplier, they would be all over that. I mean, if their cartridges for their printing, changes, they're looking at that. But healthcare has this definition of insanity, really mindset to it, and it needs to switch. And sometimes people have to hit that rock bottom of like, okay, no mas, I can't do this anymore, to really look at it. But like the conversation around that needs to be, if you are not doing something from a strategic standpoint that is impacting either the frequency, how often do claims actually happen, or the severity, how much do you pay for that claim? If you're not doing something as an advisor, as an employer to impact that, everything else is such the small end of the pie. Shopping it from this carrier to this carrier might save you a couple bucks. Changing a plan design from this number to this number. But the reality of it is, the strategies that we're talking about, the 3 C's, when you look at the cost, pay less for healthcare because you can. The consumerism, help people pay less for healthcare. And the communication, talk to employees like they are adults. They make buying decisions for every other aspect of their lives. But in healthcare, we've seemed to insulate people from thinking about their decisions have a direct correlation with how much they end up spending. And until we talk to people like that, we're never going to move the needle.